Journey Across Gene's Saga. Book 1. Now, Then, To Come. Part 3. To Come. Epilogue. The light on the Girl Boss brand lipstick applicator is flashing yellow, indicating that its contents is low. Avatar. Please state your request. Send me a lipstick replacement. Acknowledged. Order placed. Expected arrival in 1 sleep cycle. An alert flashes in the upper right corner of the augmentation lens. Urgent message received from Earth Base 15. It reads, Ugh, what is it now? Go ahead. A uniformed person comes into view, superimposed on the mirror into which the CEO stares as she applies oily crimson onto her full, artificially plump lips, her mouth in the shape of an oblong O, distorting her words. There's news from one of the labor camps, Mom. What kind of news? Be quick. I have places to be. There's a small situation. What do you mean by situation? Some of the laborers in Mine 8 have escaped. Silence. How many is some? About half of them. Numbers, Corporal. 3 fatalities. 27 escapees. 6 decommissioned automated surveillance sentries. 7 injured laborers. Scorching scorchers! She slams the brown fist holding her lipstick down on the rose marble vanity, cracking the plastic of the applicator. Silence. How did it happen? Who is responsible? She hisses through her clenched teeth. I want a full report sent to my lens now. Yes, Mom. Have you located the ones who've escaped? No, Mom. Why not? It's not like they can go very far with orange jumpsuits on. They left their jumpsuits behind, Mom. They, what? Send me the video feed. I want to see all of it. That's just it, Mom. There's no feed. A pause. The surveillance videos were somehow hacked. What do you mean, hacked? It wasn't a digital hack, Ma'am. Corporal, I'm losing my patience. Yes, Ma'am. Sorry, Ma'am. And how am I supposed to explain this to the shareholders? Silence. That wasn't a rhetorical question, Corporal. I want answers, and I want them now. She slams her fists on the marble again, but this time repeatedly. And feed! She screams. Picking up the lipstick applicator, she throws it across the sterile room, and it smashes up against the porthole window that looks down onto a not-too-distant Earth. From the Diaries of Badap. 43rd Reawakening, 1st Uihold, New Moon. I found this journal entry buried deep in a folder that was labeled 2020. I salvaged this particular folder, along with several other gems, from a 22nd century storage device that belonged to a distant relative of mine. The device, I believe they called them coil or helix drives, essentially data stored in DNA, is really just a strand of hair. Because it was kept airtight, its integrity was maintained. Anyway, I now have confirmation of when the so-called protection shelters, more like labor camps or refugee prisons, began popping up all across that distant land, which at the time was where some of my ancestors were living. The terrific irony is that this particular journal entry date was written on the day on which it was customary to celebrate the country's independence from their first colonial power. It was a day to celebrate freedom. Little did the inhabitants of that country know that in less than a decade, the place that some of them worshipped as patriots would cease to exist, at least administratively. But more on that later. So, on that very day, one of my 14th great eggbloods, Infanta, made an entry into her journal from the basement in which she was seeking refuge from the people who were to come and take her freedom away. What awful irony to possibly lose your freedom on the day that your country celebrates its manufactured freedom. What an awful time for my distant relatives. Too many pandemics to juggle all at once. Everything was deadly. A virus attacking millions, systemic racism killing even more, a global police state, private for-profit prisons, fascist leaders, and, I'm afraid, history is beginning to repeat itself almost exactly 300 Earth years later. Oh, how our human memories can be so short. Notes from Infanta Sarkozy's diary. Dates are formatted according to the Gregorian calendar of the time. Saturday, July 18th, 2020. I can't believe any of this is happening. It's all so overwhelming. My hands are shaking so bad, but I have to document what I'm feeling. I'm using my smartphone to record this. I have this app that automatically turns voice into text. I've never really been a good writer, so this will have to do. The past few weeks have been a whirlwind of events. Where do I even start? Well, for me personally, it happened the 4th of July. Actually, what happened wasn't an isolated event, I guess. Since a black guy died at the hands of the police a few states over, there have been riots popping up all across the country. I just don't get it. Why would the death of one man cause such an uproar? It wasn't like he was president or anything. Anyway, Black Lives Matter supporters have been causing a ruckus throughout almost every major city in the country, looting, rioting, burning down police stations and cars, pulling down and decapitating statues. I can't believe how arrogant they are. I mean, not all police are bad. And how can they say Black Lives Matter? Don't all lives matter? Blue lives matter too. I dated a cop. Yeah, he was a douchebag and he tried beating the crap out of me, but their lives are hard. They sacrifice so much just to protect us. My mom always had cop friends when we were growing up. She even worked for a local store that was owned by a bunch of cops from the area here in my little town. I always felt that they protected us. Anyway, what has been happening over the last few weeks is beginning to change my mind a little. Although I still feel like it's just some bad apples. Not all cops are bastards. Well, the ones blindly following stupid orders are. Luckily, I was able to escape with my baby girl. Here's what happened. Yesternight, I got a frantic call from my mom telling me to take my baby and leave the apartment. Like now. She was on her way over. I guess there was some city ordinance passed in an emergency call with members of city council. They had decided that in order to protect the non-white citizens of our little town from the possible harm from the spreading riots, the council felt that it was in our best interest for everyone who didn't have what they classified as white skin, straight blonde and light brown hair, nor blue or green eyes, to be under the protection of the city. My baby has blue eyes, but mine are brown, and so is my skin. My hair is black. I mean, I'm part Latina. I'm also part white and black, but most people think I'm just Latina. Would they really take me away? Would they try to separate me from my blue-eyed, peach-skinned baby? My mom heard on the police scanner that the city police were starting at the low-income housing developments in the city and taking the vulnerable people of color to the gymnasiums in the local middle and high schools to be sheltered. She jumped into her vehicular, and that's when she called me. Infantica, there's no time to argue about this. If you need a reminder, go look in the mirror. You're Latina. Your dad is black. Anda, mírate en el espejo. Eres afro-cubana. She pleaded into the phone while she was racing over to my apartment from her house just under a kilometer away. But Lila Alba is clearly white. They won't take her away from me. I'm her mom, I retorted. I was still in shock from what I was hearing. It didn't make any sense. Besides, I was in the middle of cooking dinner. What do I do, just turn off the burners and leave the food out in pans? It would go bad. Por supuesto, mi amor. Deja todo. Oye, I just pulled in. Grab Albita and get out here. I have plenty of baby stuff at the house. Come on, please. I hadn't heard her this ecstatic since I was a preteen. Somehow that worked, and the urgency for me to comply with her pleading kicked in. I turned off the burners, grabbed my baby and my purse, diaper bag, and was out the door. My mom had her SUV hybrid parked on the side of the street and was standing outside of it, opening the back passenger side door, motioning me to lay on the floor. She looked around nervously to see if any of the neighbors were watching. She didn't trust some of them. Just last week, she'd ripped a Confederate flag from a flagpole that the neighbor above me put on his porch. She doesn't mess around. She grabbed the things out of my arms and threw them in the back seat. Then she took a hold of my Alba, who was still sleeping despite the panicking and loud, chaotic conversation over the phone that was still in progress. I climbed into the back and lay with my back on the floor. Mom then placed a sleeping but slowly fussing a bit Alba on my stomach, jumped into the driver's seat, and we were off. Less than 5 minutes later, we were pulling into her garage. Thankfully, they just lived down the road. The plan was that I was going to hang out in the basement while Mom and Dad babysat Alba. If the police were to come to their house, they would explain how we didn't know where our daughter was. The reason we had her baby was because every Saturday night we watch Alba to give her mom a break, and that should we be concerned for our daughter's safety? Was she in immediate danger, and what could we do to help? I'd never seen Mom and Dad in such I'll kick your arse if you mess with my family mode. It was pretty awesome to witness. I'm still scared out of my mind, though. I managed to get some sleep. It helped that I was able to sleep with my Albita. She stayed down here with me yesternight. Nobody came, but if anyone had ended up coming, Mom or Dad would have run down here and gotten Alba. In that scenario, the second plan is for me to hide in the broom closet near the furnace. I've already cleared a path so that I won't accidentally trip over anything and make unnecessary suspicious noises. As I sit here and write, I can't help but let it all sink in. The police are probably looking for me, or at least are interested in my whereabouts. I watched the news this morning on cable. I hadn't watched cable in I don't know how long, but I wish I wouldn't have. It's too scary. The world has gone to crap. The featured story was live on the scene outside the middle school gym. The whole school is behind a perimeter fence that is the same height as the school. The governor deployed the National Guard to set up the so-called protection shelters. The place is heavily guarded, too. And there are places like that all around the state, even the country. Who exactly do they fear will try to hurt us? Them? I got lucky. I don't know how I'll ever thank Mom and Dad for having my back. I still have my freedom, even though I'm stuck in this basement, but for how long? I can't imagine being anywhere else right now. Like I said, the world has gone to crap. Or maybe the world has always been this way, and I'm just now seeing it. Has the world always been this wild for someone? I mean, we're living in a pandemic that has killed over 130,000 people to date, just in this country alone. People are in the streets protesting the police. People all over the world took to and are still taking to the streets. Police are using brutal force, tear gas, rubber and pepper bullets, flashbang grenades, not to mention the billy clubs in their fists. The police and FBI are using social media and cell phone data to track people involved in the more violent protests. Thousands were arrested on June 6th alone, which was the day that the uprisings began. Who are they calling violent? From the pictures I've seen on social media, the police are just as bad as some of the more aggressive protesters. Maybe the hashtag police abolition movement is onto something after all. Maybe the police are out of hand. They might be coming for me. What am I going to do? I'm scared for my Albita, my baby. Missing journal entries. Monday, January 20th, 2025. Where have the 3 or so months gone since I last wrote in this old diary? I guess I only write in here when I'm so scared that I don't know what else to do. Praying helps too, but writing down everything that's happening to me helps me work it out and think it over. I look back at the previous entry and I was so naive. Little did I know that worse things were in store for us. We've been in this camp for a little over 2 years now, me, Albita, and little Fatima. But we were told this morning that we had to move again. The new president has vowed to cut the funding for these camps and is supposed to sign the emergency order today when she is sworn into office. We only have 2 days to pack. The 3 of us are being relocated to a temporary shelter. In truth, we've been trying to cross the border over to the other side of the wide river to our neighboring country. I have a few friends and family members there now, and they said I could probably find work. But it's just not easy to go anywhere. Plus, who has $10,000 to start the application? I make that in a year, and I still have quadruple that in debt for the cost of living in these shelters for the past almost 5 years. The worst thing about kicking us out now is that it's January. Even though we haven't had much snow this year, it's still freezing outside. There are record negative temperatures. I mean, I've lived in this state my entire adult life, and never has the weather been so extreme as it has these past 2 or 3 years. Last week, it was so terribly cold that we lost over 15 elderly people from our camp to death by freezing or asphyxiation. The generators had gone out, and the ramshackle shelters on the outermost part of the camp didn't have a safe way to heat, so some went without heat and others built fires and died from the toxic fumes. It's so awful. I knew some of them from the communal kitchen. I'm just heartbroken about it. Albita was very close to poor little old Gladys. I'll miss her too. I work in the kitchen several days a week. That's how I pay for us to live here. But this is no life for me and my babies. Sometimes I wish we could just run away from it all. I've heard of people trying to cross the river now since it's been so cold, but we are also shown daily images of people trying to cross and falling through the ice or getting picked off by snipers on the other side. Who knows if any of it is actually true? With the way technology is these days, anything can be made to look real. I don't even know what to believe anymore. I can only hope that the world will be a better place someday. My children and their children and their children's children and their children's children's children and their children's 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 children. To be continued. Thanks for listening to another episode of Fenn Thornbot Reads. If you want a notification for the next episode, don't forget to hit subscribe. If you liked what you listened to today, hit the like button. And if you think somebody else might like it, hit the share button. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time. You can interact with the book online at fennthornbot.fan or just scan the QR code above. And may hold guide you as naught makes itself scarce.